with Halloween right around the corner, I'm about to do something truly terrifying, tackling consumerism. Hey everyone, welcome back to She Tried It. Today we're diving into the top 10 things I don't think you need to get started with knitting and crochet. If you're a beginner, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the endless array of tools and supplies. But don't worry, we're here to cut through the noise and save you some money. Starting off strong, you do not need expensive yarn. When you're just starting, it's easy to be drawn to those beautiful luxury yarns. Trust me, I've been there. But stick with affordable, beginner-friendly options. You'll thank yourself later because there's a lot less stress when you know you're not risking a $30 skein in a project that might not turn out perfectly. Now, I have had the privilege of being gifted some beautifully gorgeous yarns that I've used to complete some lovely projects here on my channel. But let me be very clear. One, it was gifted to me. My frugal self was not about to drop that kind of cash as a beginner. And two, by the time I used that yarn, I had more than 60 projects under my belt. Even then, I was super careful because I didn't want to disrespect the gorgeous yarns these companies entrusted me with. Of course, I'm not saying you should never buy expensive yarn, but as a beginner, that $30 skein should not be on your shopping list just yet. Start with something budget friendly so as you gain more experience and confidence, you can work your way up to those luxury yarns. Trust me, you'll be more happy with the results when you've honed your skills and you'll appreciate the yarn even more. Not to mention, you won't have that nagging worry in the back of your mind about messing up something so costly. In the end, your project should bring you joy and not stress. And starting with affordable yarn is the best way to ensure that that happens. Next up, you do not need to buy every size hook or needle out there. When you're starting out, all you really need is a couple basic sizes. For crochet, a 5mm hook is perfect, and for knitting, a size 8 needle is a pretty solid choice. You can always expand your collection as you progress and figure out what you like. Let me give you a little insight on my own crochet hook journey. My very first crochet hook I got from the library. If you watch my crochet journey video, you know that I learned to crochet and knit from free classes at the library. So when I say my first hook and needles are cheap, I mean it. They were literally free. After that, I wanted to start working on more projects, so I picked up a cheap hook from Michael's. It got the job done, but I knew I wanted something a little bit better as I got more into my craft. Eventually, I started working with We Crochet, and they gifted me a set of their bright hooks that were only $24.99 for sizes ranging from 2mm to 10mm. These beginner hooks took me very far in my crochet journey, and they were a game changer for my comfort and technique. After completing numerous projects, I decided it was time to really treat myself. So I was gifted a set of Clover Amour crochet hooks. By far, these are the smoothest hooks I've ever used. Now I'm sure there are even better hooks out there, but for me, this set is perfect. Maybe it's the type of crochet that I do, but I just don't see the need for an exorbitant collection of hooks. I'm content with having a good quality set in each size that I regularly use. Now let's talk about my knitting journey. My free needles from the library did not last long. Those plastic needles actually broke when I accidentally sat on them. In a bind to finish my whip, I grabbed some bamboo clover needles from Michael's, and I absolutely loved them. But as I started exploring different projects, I realized that I needed more sizes, so I bought a cheap set of metal hooks from Amazon. While the seamless friction on the needle was great, they had one major flaw: the connection between the needle and the cable. It would always sag, and as they say, you get what you pay for. Sure enough, mid-project, those Amazon needles snapped right at the cable connection. One by one, all my stitches fell off, and my world slowly started crumbling. Thank goodness I was still working with We Crochet at the time, and their sister company is Knit Picks. I was able to get my hands on their Prism aluminum interchangeable needle set, and these needles have been my go-to ever since. They're durable, smooth, and just a joy to work with. And let me take this moment to emphasize something. If you're a knitter, please, please, please use lifelines. Trust me, they can save you from a world of heartache. So my advice, start with the basics and only upgrade as you really need to. You don't need to spend a fortune on every size type of hook and needle out there. A good quality tool in each size that you actually use is more than enough. Your journey is about creating, not collecting, so keep it simple and enjoy the process. Number 3 on the list is specialty scissors. Look, any sharp pair of scissors will get the job done when it comes to cutting yarn. There's no need to splurge on factory crafting scissors just yet. If I'm being honest, the scissors that I use are the kind that you buy for a child starting kindergarten. The cheapest ones you can find. I picked them up at Target near the airport before heading on an international trip. Initially, it was all about avoiding TSA holdups, but I quickly realized that I didn't want my crafting tools to be a problem anywhere that I went. These little kindergarten scissors have served me very well, and while they might not be what you expect from a seasoned crafter, they've never let me down, and they cut yarn cleanly, and that's all I need. So why fix what isn't broken? I see no need to buy those expensive, fancy crafting scissors, as cute as they may be, when my trusty budget-friendly prayer does a perfectly fine job. If you're just starting out, save your money, and any sharp scissors you have on hand will be just fine. And who knows, you might end up with a pair of kindergarten scissors that become your go-to tool, just like mine. Fourth on my list is a yarn swift and ball winder. Don't get me wrong, these tools are fantastic, but they're definitely not an essential when you're just starting out. Fun fact, I don't even own a yarn swift, and I don't plan on getting one anytime soon. I do, however, own a ball winder, and I didn't purchase this until I was pretty far in my fiber journey. Let me tell you, my fiance and I have come up with some pretty creative ways to wind my yarn when the need arises. We've tried everything from me winding in circles while he holds the yarn, to using tables as a makeshift prop when he's not around. And guess what? It works. Sure, it's a bit unconventional, but it gets the job done without needing any extra tools. And for those times when I'm winding yarn solo, hand winding into balls is a perfectly fine option. It might be a bit more time consuming, but it's kind of therapeutic in a way. Now, you mainly need a ball winder if you're working with yarn hanks, but here's the thing, if the yarn you're using as a beginner comes in the hank form, it might be a little overpriced for someone just starting out. Remember what we already discussed about expensive yarn? Start simple and affordable. If you stick with basic skeins or balls, you won't even have to worry about winding at all. So while a yarn swift and a winder can be very handy tools, don't feel pressured to buy them right away. There are plenty of creative, low-cost ways to wind your yarn that will not break the bank. And who knows, you might even find that hand winding becomes a peaceful part of your crafting ritual, just like it has for me. Fifth on my list is stitch markers. Now, before you start filling your cart with cute stitch markers, let me tell you, you do not need them right away. In fact, you can get by with things you probably already have at home. Safety pins, paper clips, and even small pieces of contrasting yarn can work perfectly as stitch markers. It might not be as fancy or as cute as what you see online, but they're just as effective, especially when you're just starting out. Personally, I love a good stitch marker as much as the next crafter, but I also know how quickly those little extras can add up, especially when you're on a beginner's budget. Here's a little tip. The next time you go out and buy a new dress or shirt, check to see if the tag is attached with a safety pin. And if it is, guess what? You just scored yourself a new stitch marker. It's all about being resourceful with what you got. Marking stitches is super important, especially for beginners who might still be getting the hang of counting rows or stitches. But here's the thing, you don't need to buy something that's specifically labeled a stitch marker just to get the job done. As long as you can clip onto your work and hold your place, it's good to go. So while those stitch markers may be calling your name, don't feel pressured to buy them right away. Get creative with what you already have, and you'll see that you can still keep track of your stitches without spending any extra money. Save those dollars for something you really need or for when you want to treat yourself down the line. Number 6, blocking mats and pins. Now let's be real, blocking can be important for some projects, especially when you want those edges to lay flat and those stitches to look perfectly even. But do you really need specialized mats and fancy pins to get started? Not at all. When you're just beginning, a simple towel that you already have at home can work just fine. And as for a towel, well, I think we already all have one of those laying around. Confession time, I do not own blocking mats or blocking pins, and honestly, I never really felt the need for them. By this point in the video, some of you might be wondering, what kind of crafter am I? Skipping out on all these essentials. But let me tell you, if I can create the projects that I've made without these tools, then you can too. I totally get why people love blocking mats and pins, and if you're working on an intricate lace pattern or need to block out a large piece, they can be super helpful. They make the process more organized and can give your finished piece that extra polished look. But for me, when I block a project, I usually either wash or steam it and then lay it flat to dry. That's it. I've never felt the need to invest in a specific mat or a pin for this process. So don't feel like you need to rush out and buy a blocking kit just because you've seen others using them. Start simple with something you already have on hand. You can always upgrade your tools as you progress in your craft. But remember, it's the final result that counts, not the tools that you use to get there. In the end, whether you're using a high-end blocking mat or an old beach towel, it's all about making your project look its best with the resources you have. So save your money for now and focus on enjoying the process of creating. The rest will come in time. 7th on the list is fancy project bags. Now hear me out. Any bag or container you have laying around your home can work perfectly fine for storing your projects. Seriously, save your money. There's no need to splurge on expensive project bags when you can easily repurpose something you already own. own. If I'm being completely honest, my current project bag is a simple $1.99 tote from Hobby Lobby. I picked it up thinking I was going to design it and make it uniquely mine, but guess what? I never figured out what that unique design should actually look like. So here I am still rocking that plain tote. But you know what? It gets the job done and I'm totally fine with it. At this point, I've traveled with my projects quite a bit and I've realized that I would actually like to upgrade to a zippered bag. You know, to keep those smaller notions like stitch markers and darning needles from falling out all over the place. There's nothing quite like digging through your bag and finding a runaway stitch marker that somehow rolled to the very bottom. It can be a little bit of a hassle. But here I am still using the same designless, zipper-free tote, and honestly, it works for me. If you have design ideas that could spruce up my tote or recommendations for a good zippered bag, please let me know in the comments below. I could really use some help, and I'm always looking to improve my crafting setup, and your ideas might just inspire my next project. So when it comes to project bags, remember, it's all about being resourceful. You don't need to go out and buy the latest trendy bag to enjoy your crafting. Use what you have, and if you ever feel like upgrading, it can wait until you find something that truly resonates with you. 8th on my list are row counters. While row counters may seem incredibly handy for keeping track of your progress, let me tell you, you can easily manage without one. A simple pen and paper will do the trick just well, and you can even download a free app on your phone that helps keep tabs of your rows. In fact, I've even DIY'd a few row counter charts for some of my more complicated knitting projects. It's a great way to visualize your progress, and it can be extremely satisfying to check off each row as you go. But if I'm being honest, I still tend to forget to cross off the rows I'm on more often than not. I'll get into the groove of my knitting or crochet and completely lose track of where I am. With that in mind, I have a hard time justifying purchasing a fancy tool to help me keep track of my rows, but I can't even do it for free. I mean, if I can't stay on top of things with a simple chart or note on my phone, why spend money on something that I'm not going to use effectively? So for all of you beginners out there, remember, you don't need to rush out and buy the latest gadgets right away. Start with what you have and see what works. Once you get comfortable with your projects and develop your own rhythm, you can always reevaluate if you want to invest in a more specialized tool later on. At the end of the day, it's all about finding what works for you. Whether you're tracking your rows with a high-tech gadget or just jotting things down in a notebook, the key is to enjoy the process and make it your own. So grab a pen and paper and let's keep crafting without the unnecessary extras. 9th on my list is pattern books. Now, if you're not familiar with my channel, let me give you a quick background. The whole concept started with me sharing patterns that I completed, along with information about the designers and my thoughts on the yarn that I used. So I want to make it very clear, I am definitely not out to empty the pockets of pattern designers. If a designer you admire releases a pattern, by all means, support their small business and grab a copy. I'm all for that. However, the pattern books I'm referring to are often those thick collections filled with designs from various designers. While it can be beautifully crafted and packed with inspiration, I find that they tend to have around 15 patterns, and I might only really want to make 4 of them. And guess what? The book may cost $60. When you break it down, that means each pattern in the book is roughly $4. Now, call me crazy, but I would much rather just purchase those 4 patterns I actually want to make individually, even if they're $5 each. At least that way, I know I'm getting exactly what I want, and I can focus my time and resources on projects I'm genuinely excited about. Now, you may not see much value in this approach, and that's totally okay. Everyone has their own preference when it comes to crafting. Some people thrive on having a variety of patterns in their fingertips, while others like me prefer to hone in on specific projects. It's all about what works best for you. That said, I know there are times where you might find yourself forced to purchase a book because a particular pattern isn't available for individual sale. I've been in that situation too, and it can be a bit frustrating. Just keep in mind that while pattern books are a great resource, they tend to be more geared toward experienced crafters than beginners. So if you're new to the craft, I highly recommend completing a few patterns on your own before diving into a pattern book. Books don't always come with the same level of support and guidance that individual patterns do. Individual patterns have more detailed instructions, photos, or even videos that can help you along the way. This support can be crucial, especially when you're starting out trying to navigate the ins and outs of crocheting. So weigh your options carefully and choose the route that works best for you. In the end, whether you decide to go for a pattern book or individual patterns, the key is to find what inspires you and keeps you engaged. Explore different resources and don't be afraid to experiment with various patterns. Just remember to enjoy the journey of creating. Finally, the last thing I believe you can do without as a beginner crafter is a yarn tension guide. While keeping an even tension is crucial for achieving a polished look for your projects, it's something that you'll learn through practice over time. There's no need to invest in a special tool for that right out of the gate. In fact, I personally think it's better to develop your own tension skills naturally using your hands and the yarn itself rather than relying on a tool. This hands-on experience will help you gain a better understanding of how different yarns behave and how to adjust your grip accordingly. You'll become more in tune with your crafting, and that's a valuable skill that will serve you well in the long run. Now, let's talk about being resourceful before making any purchases. Do you already wear a ring on your finger? Why not consider using that as a tension ring? It's a simple, cost-effective solution that can easily help you maintain consistent tension without adding any extra tools to your toolkit. Plus, it's a fun way to incorporate something into your crafting process. If you feel fairly confident in your crochet abilities, you could even take it a step further and crochet your own tension ring. This not only adds a personal touch to your crafting, but it also reinforces the very skills that you're working to master. It's a creative project in itself that allows you to experiment with tension while making something useful. Remember, every crafter's journey is unique, and the path to mastering your craft is all about practice and exploration. Explore the learning process, be open to trying new techniques, and don't be afraid to think outside the box when it comes to your tools. You'll find that as you grow in your crafting ability, you'll develop your own preferences for achieving that perfect tension without needing any fancy gadgets. So there you have it, my list of 10 things I don't think you need to get started with knit or crochet. The key here is to keep it simple and enjoy the process. When it comes down to it, all you really need is a pattern, whether it's written or in video form, a budget-friendly skein of yarn, and a trusty crochet hook or knitting needles. Pair that with a can-do attitude and you're all set to embark on your fiber journey. Now, let's take a moment to reflect. Be honest, how many items did I convince you to cross off your shopping list for your next craft haul? I hope I inspired you to focus on the essentials and reminded you that you don't need to overspend to enjoy your craft. But I want to hear from you. What do you think? Are there any must-haves you think I might have missed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights can help others who are just now starting on their crafting journey. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on any tips or tricks in the near future. Your support means the world to me. Happy crafting, everyone, and I can't wait to see what you create with the tools and resources you already have. Until next time, see you in my next video. Bye!